EDA Step 2 came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. This step is a foundational step for the rest of the path, and I want to take some careful attention to really speak specifically to what Step 2 is and what it's not. EDA is based on the AA Big Book, and in AA and EDA, there are so many amazing tools that allow us going through recovery to find freedom from our disordered thinking and patterns. And I think the best way to really step into Step 2 is to read aloud the foundational pieces of Step 2. So again, Step 2 came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Many of us had no problem with the fundamental idea of God. Our main issue was that we doubted our ability to recover, since we had not yet found lasting freedom despite our belief. Others of us had always believed in God, yet we couldn't figure out how to allow God into our lives to a greater degree, especially when we knew that meant we would have to lay aside our eating disorders. Some of us who had faith had grown up with a kind of negative fear or resentment towards God that needed to be overcome in order to build a deep and meaningful relationship. Those of us who are atheist or agnostic struggled to find a conception of power that we could reconcile with our ideas about how the world works. Some of us tried using a conception that aligned well with the spirit of the universe described in the AA chapter, We Agnostics, while others used the power of our EDA group as our higher power. People were clearly getting better through reliance on these sources of hope and guidance, yet many of us remained skeptical. EDA agrees that some fundamental force or forces seem to be able to create life in the most inhospitable places. Not only do these forces generate life, they regularly triumph over adversity. Just like the processes through which broken bones heal, we do not need to understand all the details of the recovery process to trust that it works. If we adopt a concept of fundamental healing, force in nature, we'll have no doubt about the force being greater than ourselves. Once you have read through all 12 steps, you will have seen that steps 1 and 2 are laying a foundation. This being step 2 is a foundational step. We need to open ourselves up to a relationship with something greater than ourselves to get through the remaining steps and fully recover. Flexibility is definitely a part of step 2. So when I started my step work, I had a relationship with God that was there, but definitely surface level. And so moving through the step work, really understanding that a higher purpose was what kept me going and what I believed could restore me to a level of sanity. Sanity had a little bit of a sting to me, and though things were insane, like when I look back and I look at my eating disorder history log from step 1, insanity definitely had ensued in so many areas that I wasn't even realized. And so whatever concept you choose, you're going to need to draw upon that as you move forward into the steps. So the next step, not to jump ahead, but is the step where we actually turn our will and lives over to the care of God or a higher power or a higher purpose. It's important definitely to know that we're all in the same boat. So whether we are strongly religious or spiritual or agnostic or atheist, we're all in the same boat. So whether you believed in God or not, relying on something other than eating disorder is the key. We commit ourselves to something greater than ourselves. And when we rely on something greater than ourselves, combined with action, it sets us free. So there's a quote from the AA text that says, "Faith without works is dead." My friend who's in AA told me about step 2 that, you can't expect your higher power, your higher purpose, or God to do all the work for you. You have to show up at the top of the mountain and meet it halfway and be willing to do the work, be willing to do half of the work. So if atheist or agnostic is in your story, in your journey, don't worry about it. It's completely something that's there for a lot of us. And see about shifting into the idea of service to others, service to something greater than self. And whether you have adopted a religious or spiritual or any other non-spiritual solution, It's great to see in step 2 that we can all agree that we need a different way of looking at the world and our place in it, that we need to rely on the new way of looking at the world, and finding that we can't rely on anything that we're not willing to trust. So in step 2, identify or define something greater than yourself that you can open yourself to and trust and rely on it. Okay, so there's another big word, trust. Whoa. Well, if you're thinking, well, hold on a second, I don't trust anything. I haven't trusted anything in years. Yeah, that's where in step 1, we took back that we admitted we couldn't trust ourselves to manage. And so here it's understanding trusting something else, someone else. And so if we take ourselves out of the picture together and reflect on what we can trust, letting go of what we can't trust, there's something, one piece, one thread, one little tiny dental floss thread of something that we can trust that's greater than ourselves. And for everybody, that's going to be something different. And let that trust, let that thing give us perspective and peace to move on. EDA totally believes that each one of us, everyone listening, can find something or some cause beside ourselves that matters just enough to put ourselves aside, one day at a time, one breath at a time, one moment at a time. And it's something we care deeply about so that our commitment doesn't falter. Some choose to carry the message of recovery as our higher purpose. That's something that I personally have done, and I found it completely rewarding and fulfilling. So maybe you're going to lead an EDA group. Maybe you're going to serve as a sponsor. Some people advocate for rights, for human rights, for animal rights. Some of my sponsees have taken what would be like resentments and turned that into their step 2, what they believe in, their higher purpose. So let's say they had suffered abuse or neglect. They've turned around and found professions that heal others that are working in that same area. So it's looking way outside of us and way beyond us to be up to something bigger than ourselves, basically getting out of our own way and grow stronger and serving that higher purpose, that higher power. So there's not actually a correct concept. It's not actually that. It's being out of that concern of conceptual and what it is to finding something we can use as a new focal point, a new drishti, a new way to shift our lens. It's like getting a new set of glasses or putting on new contacts and looking at our third eye. And so letting it be about maximum service to others rather than the drama and the mixed messages inside of ourselves. And so knowing that we are not going to be free of emotions, we don't have to be mirrored in them. Things are going to happen for sure, and we need to be prepared to stop running from those things and ask our higher powers, higher purpose, or God to restore us. And so relying on that thing, trusting that thing will lead us into less dependency on old habits and seeing things for what they are. So by relying on this higher power, higher purpose, we can see the signals, the reminders, the challenges, the opportunities, even the impediments to healing us. But everything depends on relying on a higher power or a higher purpose that you trust enough to be willing to set aside your fear, your anxiety, your doubt. And if you believe that you can rely on your higher power or higher purpose to keep you from acting out, even for one moment, you've completed step 2. You're on the road to recovery. So the next thing, step 2, believe that you can rely on something higher than yourself. See you next time.